Hello, Facebook world. I'm Erin Barnes. Thank you for tuning in with me again today so that we can talk about what it's like to be a teacher in the world of Epic Charter School. And I know with the number of shares, the number of comments, the number of people being tagged in our posts, that there's definitely still interest. And so if we can help out with that interest in any way, we're going to. And so we did a teacher recruitment video last Monday that basically gave the ins and outs of what we do here. And you can go back and find that video on our Facebook page if you want to rewatch it. But today we've got different guests and different questions, and really we're hoping that you have questions for us that we can answer your questions as we go along. I've got a great panel here today. We've got Kyle Perkins, who is the man in charge of all hiring. We've got Dr. Keeney, who is over the UTeach program. Jenna Bellamy is a principal here at Epic, and Greg Pierce is an amazing educator who's been with us for 7 years. Are you starting your 8th, Greg?
Starting my 8th. Yes, I am.
That's awesome. So we're going to give people a few more minutes to get on. We're seeing the numbers rise as we come along. If you've got questions for us that we're not answering, fill them out and we're going to answer your questions live here today. But as always, we've got frequently asked questions that we're going to start with until your questions start rolling in. And so, Greg, for anybody that didn't watch last week, tell me what a typical week looks like as an educator here at
Epic. Typical week. Well, that's a good word to use. Typical week. It fluctuates a lot, but after 7 years, I've finally kind of gotten a little bit of a routine. In fact, I just made this morning. I'm going to hold it up. My principal was looking for it. I know this isn't going to be super enlightening, but that is my tutoring schedule. And it's going to change because I'm going to get more students. I'm going to lose some students, but that's the basic tentative plan. And so a typical week for me includes a lot of traveling. I like to go to my students' homes. You don't have to. And if they're not comfortable with that, especially in light of the world as it is today, that's okay too, because we can do virtual just like we're doing now. But I like to travel, and most of my families have signed on for that. So I basically schedule my week based on who I'm tutoring. And I have enough students that's kind of a 3-week rotation. And so what I do is I just get on the road about 8:30 in the morning and I drive to my first spot. Everybody gets about an hour roughly. Some of the little kids, maybe they don't sign on possibly for a whole hour. So we might just go 30 minutes before they kind of sign off, but that's all right. And then I'll get a head start on my next visit. And that's basically how my day goes. And I tried first year I got on board. I pretty much got up at 8 and went to bed at 9 or 10 at night every day of the week, and that was just burning me out. And so I made a commitment to my family that I would pretty much cut my business day off at 5, and so that's what I started doing at that point, and it still works. So 8 to 5 pretty much every day. I'll hit about 5 or 6 kids a day. If it's virtual, I can hit 7 or 8 kids a day, and I basically just will tutor those students on whatever they're struggling in. If it's an area that they don't need help with, I let them go until they, hit a roadblock, and then I jump in and if it's their time to meet, that's what we'll cover. But for me, pretty much Monday through Thursday and about half of the day Friday, I'm traveling or tutoring with students. And then the last half of the day Friday, I'm getting caught up on emails. I'll do a lot of my grading then. And I might, if I have time, I will probably catch somebody. If somebody was sick during the week, I'll probably either hop online with them, or if they're close by, I may even just go meet them at the library or something like that. But that's a typical week for me. You stay pretty busy, but now that I've learned how to manage it, you don't have to burn yourself out either. So it's completely doable, and you can meet with a lot of kids.
Excellent. And that's so true. And everything we do here is 100% a compact between the family and the teacher and the student. And so it really, it kind of takes a village around here. And so being flexible to meet those kids where they're at is a necessity, and it sounds like you're doing it great. Jenna, a lot of people want to know, what is it like being a first year teacher? And so you're a principal here. What is your role in making sure teachers are prepared for their first year or their second year?
I think the main thing as my role as a principal to get these teachers supported is that, I thought about this, and whenever you start a job at a brick and mortar and you're given the keys and the principal walks you down and they take you into this empty classroom with all this stuff, and then the principal leaves and it's like, okay, let me know if you need anything. It's total opposite here at Epic. We are constantly providing support. I just met with some of my new teachers this morning, and one of them is more comfortable with high school kids, and one of them is more comfortable with the lower elementary. So we were able to fix their roster where they right now will start with kids that they are the most comfortable with. They're also on a team of 20 other teachers that everyone is willing to go above and beyond and to share with these teachers any resource they need. They have a director of teacher development. They have, on the SPED side, they have a compliance coordinator. They have constant resources that can help them be successful. And we're telling them as principals, we don't expect you to know everything. When you're hired at a brick and mortar, you may be the English teacher and you are an expert in that subject. At Epic, it's different because you have pre-K through 12, and some of these kids you've never taught before that age grade, that age level. So it's our job to let you know that it's okay to not know at the beginning. We're going to provide you the support. We're going to do whatever we can to walk you through and provide you trainings to where you feel successful and ready to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are starting to get a few questions coming in. I want to address Cassie's question on, let me see, it says, can you bring kids with you when you work? And Cassie, we say no to that. If you're going to be teaching another child, we really need to make sure that your 100% focus is on that child. And so on the days that, Greg, you go out and you're driving around to other families, you've got childcare lined up, or your wife is home with those kids. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct. Sometimes I will bring my older kids, but they will stay and do their school with AC running in the van. It's just too much of a distraction for me if I try to bring them in. I especially couldn't bring my young ones in. So they're either mom's watching them at home. She's fortunate enough to be able to stay at home, or we have childcare if we need it. It just doesn't work otherwise.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Cassie also wants to know, is it possible to work part-time? And Cassie, the answer to that is yes. We do have a number of teachers who do work part-time, but we really would move away from part-time if we can, so that we can bring on a full-time teacher who's fully devoted to teaching their roster. I see Kyle coming in and out. Kyle, do you want to elaborate on part-time, full-time?
Yes, I'm sorry you can't hear me, but for part-time positions, every interview will be full-time. We do consider part-time in certain areas, but I would say 99% of our hires will be considered full-time. We don't look to hire part-time. Those are only if we have a specific need in that area.
Awesome. Thank you. And so, Kyle, another question we've got coming through while we've got you on the phone is, what does the process look like from start to finish? A teacher turns in an application. About how long until they've heard from you, and about how long, if you decide that we're going to hire them, does it take to get onboarded?
3-step interview process. We have an interview with a member from one of my teams, and we have a case study that they will complete, and then they finally have the interview with a principal. And so after that, I'll decide whether or not we're bringing them on or not, and so that whole process can take up two weeks, depending on when they schedule with their principal, when they schedule with their case study, quickly they want to move through that. But as far as getting onboarded after that process, it is very quickly.
Good. So let me see here. It looks like Andrea wants to know, she's currently a nurse. What are some of the certifications needed if she were to apply at Epic? And I think this is a great segue into Dr. Keeney. What are you doing with the UTeach program here at Epic?
Well, thanks for having me. So we're very excited about this because the UTeach program, it's an accelerated, non-traditional teacher preparation program. And to answer your question, it's designed to take someone with a bachelor's degree and put them through a pathway or a training process over about a year's time, assisting them in becoming a state certified teacher. We are using a program called the American Board Certification Program, which the state of Oklahoma entered into a partnership with them in 2009 as a way to help with the teacher shortage. And it's designed, like I said, to help to take those that have that bachelor's degree and helping them, those that aspire to become a certified teacher, to help them achieve that goal.
Awesome. And Dr. Keeney, I don't know if you know this, but I sat on that teacher shortage task force with Ms. Hoffmeister, the state superintendent. And this was one of the things she wanted people thinking outside of the box. How do we overcome this shortage? And I'm so incredibly excited that Epic was able to figure out a way to get teachers certified and help them develop new passions for educating teachers. This is great. You have added a new portion to that UTeach. Am I correct? Last year with your cohorts, you were training up special education teachers. We've added regular education this year. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have just launched and started the process of advertising for UTeach reged. And it's essentially the same dynamics where we are taking individuals with a bachelor's degree and through a process of enrolling them into the American Board Certification Program, taking them through a process of helping them become a state certified teacher in a secondary education content area. That is correct. Very excited about it.
Yes, that is incredibly exciting. My husband went through a platform just like this a few years back. He was a marketing major, and he had spent 8 years with the Tulsa Police Department and just really wasn't a big fan of the climate and needed a change in his life. And what an amazing way to have change. And he has never been happier. He's been teaching here at Epic, and I love that you're able to help people think outside of the box and help develop their passion towards educating here. Let me see here. We've got a few more questions coming through. Sandy wants to know, do we hire mid-year? Sandy, we do hire mid-year. We really only do that if there's a need in a specific area, like Mr. Perkins had said just a few minutes ago. But we aren't opposed to hiring mid-year. Sarah wants to know, with a bachelor's degree in biology, would one of my tests for certification need to be in biology? That's a great question, Dr. Keeney. Can you answer that?
Yeah, that is a great question. So one of the advantages to the American Board is the 2 certification exams they require. One is a professional teaching knowledge exam. That is similar to the state of Oklahoma's OPTI. Some people may be familiar, but the other side of that is the content area exam. Biology, general science, chemistry, those areas are recognized. So if someone had a background in biology or English or secondary math or world history they had a passion for, and they wanted to become a teacher, one of the advantages of the American Board program is that they get an opportunity to select their content area. And obviously, if someone is trained in the area of biology, that they could certainly select that content area to prepare for and take that certification exam through the American Board. So absolutely.
Awesome. Lori wants to know, is the pay comparable to teaching positions in other schools? And I think that that's a great question. Lori, the answer is yes, and better than. We have a compensation package that allows you to get a performance-based pay on top of your salary pay. The first year you teach with Epic, you are only granted that base pay, but when the next year begins, that's when the performance bonus sections come into play. Kyle, can you add to that answer in any way for her?
Our teachers is that comes in after the first year. And so their performance, like you talked about, is all based on the previous 4 metrics.
Okay, and there's breaking up there, but yes, I believe I got enough in to hear that the performance pay is based on the previous year. I mean, without just going into the weeds on this, I know when I was a teacher, and Greg, I'll put words into your mouth, you you are handsomely rewarded for doing the right thing here. And typically in the brick and mortar world, when the teacher was the first one to the building and the last one to leave because their passion dictated that they needed to be there longer than the rest, they were paid the same as everyone else. Here, you are handsomely rewarded for going above and beyond. And I love that about our school. Let me see. There is another question, and Greg, if you don't mind, I'll give it to you. What are some of the best ways that a teacher can be successful at Epic?
The number one thing for me is I finally got to meet. Let me backtrack. When I taught at Grove, I didn't meet families except for at parent-teacher conference nights, and then I met maybe 2% of my families. When I started with Epic, I met every one of the families. We're talking siblings, mom, dad, even pets. And that might sound like not a big deal, but it's a huge deal. It's a game changer because in this format, the parents play a huge role in the child's education. Now, I don't mean that they're the tutors, but they are definitely the accountability partners and the encouragers for the students. We have to have that buy-in from the parents for this program to really work successfully. And when I met the parents and got involved with their lives, you know, I still have lots of families, even of students who've graduated through Epic, that I still keep in touch with. I could go over to their house and drop in and say hello anytime. When all of those components are working together, you've got a teacher that's helping the students with the subjects that they need. You've got the parents that are encouraging the student during the times that the teacher's not there, and then you've got the student doing the work and asking the questions. When all 3 of those things are working together, it works. And so my advice to a new teacher would be get to know the families. Don't be afraid to go and do that. That's not everybody's comfort zone, is going into somebody else's house. That was definitely different for me when I started. But once I was scared. I'll be honest, I was very nervous doing that. I'm kind of an introvert, so that's not my natural way of doing things. But I just jumped in with both feet, and that relationship with the parents makes all the difference. The other thing that I would say is you're going to have to be very flexible. When I was at brick and mortar for about 8 years, you have a very rigid schedule. You're there at this time, this hour goes from this time to this time, lunch is at this time, and it's the same every day. Even though I showed you my tutoring schedule earlier, that thing's going to change. Snow is going to roll in, people are going to get sick, COVID's going to happen, and you've got to learn how to think on your feet and roll through those kind of weird predicaments and figure out how to make things work on the fly. So get parent involvement and definitely be flexible, but it's never the same thing twice in a day, and I actually really like that part of it.
Awesome. Delana wants to know, with the performance pay paid out like a bonus, is it taxed like other IRS identified bonuses at 40%? And Delana, yes. But when I do my taxes at the end of each year, it always comes back to me. So yes, it is taxed, you know, but you get it back. So I hope that that helps. And it is still significantly higher than any salary I got working in my previous district. Let me see here. We've got another question. And are you still hiring for this school year? Kyle, can you take that question? Are you there? All right, I'm not sure if he heard me, but the answer is yes, we are still hiring for this school year. It's no secret that we have gotten an influx of students for whatever reason, and I mean, pandemic reasons, I'm sure, but we are still hiring for this school year, and we still have another month at least of hiring for this school year. Okay, so somebody didn't have a specific question, but they want you to discuss the UTeach program in a little more detail. Can you elaborate on UTeach, Dr. Keeney?
Yeah, so essentially, I'll just kind of give them the start to finish. So essentially what happens is we'll put them through the interview process similar to Kyle's team. They'll go through the interview process. If they are offered an opportunity to join one of the cohorts, they'll start off. Now there's two tracks. There's UTeach reged, UTeach sped. The UTeach sped side will start off with a 6-week boot camp, and we've established such a great relationship with the OSDE special ed services area, and they'll go through a very rigorous boot camp. Those that successfully complete that boot camp will transition into, I describe it as going down two pathways at the same time in the same direction. One side of that road is working with and teaching those SPED students under that provisional, and the other side is that American Board Certification Program. And so while they're working with and teaching those students, they are also working with a great team, a director of teacher development, compliance coordinators, SPED principals, UTeach sports specialists. They are being evaluated similar to a student teaching experience. And then that'll take place over the next 10 to 12 months. They're also preparing for the certification exams to be completed. And if they come out on the back side of that successfully completing the American Board's Teacher Residency Program, along with passing those certification exams, then they are eligible for that standard certification through the OSDE. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I've got another question here. Delana wants to know if you have a family or if you have family that attends EPIC, are you able to be their teacher? And Delana, yes, but they want to have to be with you. That is huge. My husband teaches a couple of his nieces and nephews, but then I've got my own personal sister whose son goes to the BLC, and that's just a better option for them. So yes, but they need to say that they want you. You don't just get to steal them. How's that? Let me see here. Jenna, can you speak to the number of students each teacher has? I think that there's a worry out there that we're inundated with 150 students. Is this true?
No. And what we try to do is we try to let teachers have on their roster the amount of kids that they feel the most comfortable with. I have 4 new teachers that have started in the last month, and one of them has 32, one has 28. My 2 who just came on this week, we are kind of letting them start with 20, and then we'll raise their roster. My ones that have been with EPIC, some have 40, other ones have 35. So it really just kind of depends on how comfortable the teacher feels that she can handle that roster.
I know that there are some who want to keep that small, some who go above that 32, 38, 35. We know here at Epic, based on historical data, that the sweet spot is between 28 and 32 students. And so we try really, really hard to keep teachers in that sweet spot so that there's the better option for making sure the performance is there on the backside. We've got another question here. Carrie wants to know, is there a fee for the American Board certification? Do they have to pay that fee? Dr. Keeney, can you weigh in on that?
No, that's one of the many blessings Epic has committed to. Is there is a pretty significant fee for to be enrolled into the American Board, and Epic assumes that cost as a part of hiring people on, and that that goes along with they're not only being enrolled into that, but I think Jenna had talked about the support structure that's put around them with the director of teacher development, compliance coordinator, SPED principal, myself, UTeach support specialist. So the simple answer is no, that fee is taken care of by Epic Charter.
Thank you. I have never, again, I've only worked in a few school districts, but I have never seen a district rally around their teachers as much as Epic has. And going back to that last week Q&A a little bit, you have life insurance that you don't have to pay into for accidental death and dismemberment. You have a 403B option that you can throw your monies, your retirement savings into, so that it's not taxed like other things. We have so many options available here for teachers that Epic has gone above and beyond to make sure that you are treated like the kings and queens of society that you are. We've got another question here from Hannah. Hannah wants to know, are the approximate hours 8 to 5 Monday through Friday? Would I have to work weekends? And Hannah, that's a great question. Again, you might refer back to me saying it's a compact between the teacher and the family and the students. And so, Greg, I know you have set your hours to an approximate 8 to 5. Do you answer questions on the weekend, and have you thrown together a Zoom call to help out a student during those times?
Oh, yes. Yes, I do that all the time. And honestly, just because I have kind of set up my hours that way, you as the teacher have the autonomy to kind of set up your hours however you want to. That's one of the great things about it. I have a lot of students who like to do their schoolwork at 1 and 2 in the morning. Now, I'm not going to set my hours till 1 a.m., okay, but maybe you're a teacher and that's when you do your best work. I don't know. But you really do have a lot of freedom to set that up however you want. And yes, I always let my parents know that even if it's after 5, if you've got something that you need to ask me, or your student's having trouble, you need to get a hold of me. Even though I may not set up like an emergency tutoring session at 10 o'clock at night, I will definitely get back to my parents and students. I mean, there are customers, for lack of a better way to put it, and I care about them and I want to keep them happy. And so you do what you have to do to get that done. And I don't mind it at all, actually.
Yes. And I think Dr. Keeney had to go. He had another interview set up. And so we're going to let him run off to that. We do still have several questions coming through if you guys don't mind hanging out. Let me see here. Brian wants to know, how often do kiddos interact with their teachers? And Brian, and everybody listening, the world of Epic is so individualized and personalized. I remember when I was teaching, I had a student who just didn't do the schoolwork unless she checked in with me every single day. And every single day at 9, we would get on a Skype call, because that's what we used back then. And I would lay out her day. And was it any different than the day before? Not necessarily, but she needed that daily communication with me. It lasted 5 or 10 minutes, and then she'd go off and do her work. I've got other students who checked in about once every other week because that's all they need. And I could tell through doing grades and checking up with the curriculum content that they were good to go. And so every other week I would meet with them for an hour and we'd kind of go through the next 2 weeks. Everything we do here is a compact between that parent and student and teacher. And so how often do you interact? It's kind of between you and your family. I do know that we try to stay in communication as often as anyone needs. So I hope that helps. Different Brian, with an I and not a Y, wants to know, as a TA the last couple of years, I've been getting insurance through my job. Will insurance carry over if I'm selected for the UTeach program? Also, how many students minimum for a UTeach teacher? And so we, with the UTeach comes a little extra education and boot camp, but the minimum number of students to be a full-time teacher is 16 students. And yes, it's the same insurance that the state offers every school that you'll be a part of here. And another benefit to Epic, you don't have to pay into any of it. Epic pays that portion of insurance for you. Just another thing, it's like, I believe Shauna, who was on the call with us last week, said it's like getting a 7% raise by coming on here because they take that and take care of it for you. Brian also wants to know, no, sorry, that was the same question. Katie wants to know, I'm just joining, not sure if this has been asked already, but do teachers have to meet face-to-face this year in the midst of COVID, or can you request to meet with your students completely over Zoom? And that's a great question, Katie. It's another one of those, it's a compact between you and your families. And so if you let your families know that this is kind of where I'm at, I would prefer to only do Zoom this year. That's fine, but I also think you need to know that they may request a different teacher because of that, if they want that face-to-face interaction. While we treat the teachers here at Epic like kings and queens, the customer, the student and family, they rule it all. And so the choice is 100% theirs. If they choose a new teacher, then they may want that face-to-face. And so I hope that helps answer your question. It looks like the questions are slowing down just a little bit. And so unless another one comes in and it's just, super amazing, Jenna, can you talk really quickly about, in the interview, as you're interviewing teachers through this process, what kind of things are you looking for in a teacher who you think is ready to come here to Epic?
I think one of the main things that I'm looking for is, can they carry on a conversation? Can they adapt to answer these questions that I'm asking them? Do they know about standards? Are they willing to put in the extra work? Because working at Epic, it's not easy. It's hard, but if you are a hard worker and you're willing to go above and beyond, you will be fine. And I think that's kind of the main thing that we're trying to do as we interview teachers is we want good teachers, but we also want people who have the expectation that this is not something where they sit at home and don't have to work very hard. Like, you have to work hard to be a successful Epic teacher.
Absolutely. Greg, if there was a teacher who is applying today, what kind of advice would you give them as they're walking into that interview process?
Well, I would tell them, kind of echoing what she just said, don't assume that you're just going to get to stay in your PJs all day and sit behind a computer screen and, do some data entry. You need to be realistic. This is a very difficult job. I probably work, I work a lot more hours than I ever did when I worked at the brick and mortar. But don't let that scare you off at the same time, because it's far more rewarding. It's a variety of a day. I get to know my students and families on a level I never got to know them at before. And I get to make a difference, because the one thing that I found at brick and mortar that worked really well was working one-on-one with the students, or one with a small group. I mean, anybody that's taught knows, in the brick and mortar classroom knows, you got 30, 40 students in one class, and you get to see them for 55 minutes before they run off to the next class. It's just not conducive to learning. I mean, it's a good social environment, but it's not conducive to any kind of strides in education. So be prepared to work hard, but the payoff, both in terms of salary, which is everybody's, that's practical concern, but the payoff in terms of salary, and even more so in terms of making a difference in the kids that you're teaching, is so worth the extra hours. But I think I get a lot of folks that ask about teaching here, and they assume, oh, well, it's going to be kind of a breeze. You get to do everything from home. That is not the way that it is. It is a very hard job, but you are rewarded for doing a good job on multiple levels.
Yes. I've been asked also, and I think it's important to bring up, even though the question didn't come through, what if you're sick for a day? Or what if you have a family member getting married? Do you need to find a substitute for that? And the answer is no. If you go on maternity or paternity leave, you would put together a sub-plan for another teacher to carry out for your kiddos. But otherwise, you're free and flexible enough, as long as your families are informed as to what's going on, to be able to go to that doctor's visit and not have to find a substitute, or attend that wedding and just let your families know you're gone for the next 3 days. The flexibility here is truly amazing, to be able to still make such an impact. Another thing is, you're directly responsible for, I know my own story in education is, it's a little sad. I feel like if I had just been granted another month or 2 months in each grade level, I could have fully mastered each grade level and not been left with like Swiss cheese brain. You get to help students who need just a little more time get through their school year without being pushed on and socially promoted, because that's the thing. You also have the direct impact of helping a kid through the program faster if they don't need to be held back for any specific reason by their classmates, or any other host of things that might hold a student in a grade level because they're just supposed to be in that grade level. So the flexibility and the rewards are immense. That's about that's about where I think we should leave it. Do you think? Any final words, Jenna or Greg?
If you're even teetering, if you're even considering applying, and you love students, you need to go ahead and give it a shot. You really do. It'll be worth it. You'll see once you get on that it was the right choice to make.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we will be monitoring some of the questions that come through. I know that the noon hour is hard for some. And so those of you that watch this later, if you want to throw your questions in, we'll try to monitor the questions that come through after this 30-minute session and get to you as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in on a Monday at noon. And we look forward to more live Q&As with you leading the discussion. Thank you.